It seems many who have tried one-pedal driving wouldn't want to own a car without it. Yet some brands refuse to add one-pedal driving to their vehicles, despite it adding zero extra hardware costs. There are debates about efficiency, and there just might also be a significant safety issue. So what's it all about? Welcome to a One Finite Planet EV video on one-pedal driving. Chapters start with the basic, what is one-pedal driving and how it works, and then on to areas of more interest to those already familiar with the subject: history, misconceptions, why people love one-pedal driving, tips and efficiency, and finally, that question of safety. One-pedal driving could technically be possible in any modern vehicle that has just two pedals. While it's not feasible in vehicles with a manual gearbox and a clutch pedal, you could add it to any other vehicle. But so far, it's only offered in EVs as it's best paired with EV regen braking, as discussed in the regen video. One-pedal driving is driving a vehicle with two pedals, but in a manner that will only use the second pedal in emergencies. Those two pedals are, firstly, the brake pedal, which in keeping with its name activates braking when pressed, and secondly, as the one pedal, the pedal usually named the accelerator or gas pedal, although both names have always had limitations. Gas pedal hardly fits with an EV, and while pressing harder does produce acceleration, the pedal must also remain pressed just to maintain a constant speed, and can be used to reduce speed by reducing pressure or lifting off, meaning in all vehicles, this pedal can also produce a braking effect. So, in a traditional two-pedal vehicle, the accelerator can already do everything needed when driving, with the exception of bringing the vehicle to a complete stop. Okay, you can bring a vehicle to a complete stop on an uphill or incline, but to be able to stop at least most of the time, vehicles with one-pedal driving add the provision of sufficient braking force to bring the vehicle to a smooth stop whenever the driver completely lifts off from pressing the accelerator. With one-pedal driving, there are still the same two pedals, and they still operate the same as normal, but with the addition of sufficient computer-controlled braking force to bring the vehicle to a stop whenever the driver completely lifts off on the accelerator, leaving neither pedal pressed. The brake pedal is still needed for emergency stopping or any other time lifting off on the accelerator isn't enough, but the goal is for when driving smoothly, the braking from liftoff will, alone, provide sufficient braking. The high levels of liftoff regen available to EVs, as described in the video on regen braking, linked below, combined with the adding of braking to bring the car to a controlled stop once the driver completely lifts off on the accelerator, enables driving in most situations with the use of only that one accelerator pedal. The second pedal, the brake pedal, is still there and still needed for emergency braking or situations requiring more braking than available from liftoff alone. One-pedal driving is a way of driving, still with the same two controls available, but leaving one aside for emergencies and using the accelerator pedal to accelerate, maintain speed, slow down, and even come to a stop by lifting off completely. Same two controls, but with the action of the accelerator modified so lifting off completely engages braking to bring the vehicle gently to a complete stop. Again, for an emergency stop, the brake pedal is still there and the two-pedal driving is always possible. Regen braking, as explained in the regen video, is at the core of one-pedal driving. To save watching that entire video, here's the summary. Regen braking is braking power not by the power of the driver's right foot or a hydraulic booster system, but by the motion, the kinetic energy of the car itself. The faster the car is going, the greater the regen braking that's possible. Regen braking at speed can have the power to throw occupants forward against their seatbelts, although normally a lower level of regen is activated on liftoff. The level of regen on liftoff is computer controlled, and with modern EVs, the vehicle's computer may offer one or more settings, each designed to offer a different balance between maximum regen and an amount of braking deemed appropriate for just lifting off the accelerator. But despite the common misconception, one-pedal driving is not just regenerative braking. As being powered by the motion of the vehicle, regenerative braking loses all power as speeds drop to zero and needs some help to bring a vehicle to a complete stop. One-pedal driving results from blending high levels of regenerative braking with computer-controlled use of friction brakes at low speed to enable bringing the vehicle to a complete stop without pressing the brake pedal. One-pedal driving, as we know it today, was not the first attempt at control of speed and braking with just one pedal. Japanese inventor Masukiyaki Narase first filed patents from 1993 to his most recent granted patent in 2010 for his quite different system of fully one-pedal driving, which was based on adding acceleration to the brake pedal. But one-pedal driving, as it is in vehicles today, was pioneered by Nissan in 2017. EVs, even before the 1996 EV1, and basically all EVs and hybrids from 1996, have had some level of lift-off regen braking. And by the mid-2010s, there were several EVs that could use regen to slow to around 5 kilometres an hour or 3 miles an hour. But it was Nissan in 2017 that first added blended friction braking at low speeds on liftoff to facilitate stopping, and BMW followed on the i3 in 2018. Tesla, from the outset with the 2008 Roadster, offered high levels of regen in all vehicles, but did not add the stopping mode for one-pedal driving in 2019, which was via a software update for the Model 3 and via software and hardware updates for Tesla Models S and X produced from 2019. Despite not being pioneers of one-pedal driving, it quickly became associated with Tesla because the lack of access to regen via brake-by-wire, combined with large and powerful batteries of Tesla vehicles, made one-pedal driving and Tesla vehicles logical partners. The two main misconceptions around one-pedal driving are, one, that the vehicle stops due to regen alone, and two, that one-pedal driving provides greater economy and produces less wear on friction brakes than other ways of driving an EV. First, the final stopping is by friction brakes, not regen brakes, as despite it being repeated over and over on the internet that regen brakes can stop a car, the laws of physics dictate that regen, as it extracts power from movement, can only slow a car. If you could get regen at zero speed, you could just remain stopped while the battery charged. While AI will, at first, echo articles that say regen can stop you, question it and it will provide the real answer. The friction brakes are only applied once there is too little kinetic energy to power regen, so it's not like a significant amount of energy is being wasted. But it does help to understand what's happening. The second myth somewhat follows on from the first myth, at least in combination with the myths around regen braking as covered in that video, and explained in detail in the video on efficiency linked below. One-pedal driving is not inherently more efficient than driving with high lift-off regen without one-pedal driving, as the only difference is that in one-pedal driving the car automatically applies the friction brakes. Plus, a high level of lift-off regen is actually not more efficient than using brake pedal regen. Despite many resources explaining why one-pedal driving and high regen are less efficient, that's not really true either. Reality being that one-pedal driving and high regen levels do make it more challenging to drive efficiently, but when the driver focuses on those challenges, the driver may drive in a more efficient manner. While one-pedal driving limits access to regen to around 80 kilowatts, as opposed to as much as 300 kilowatts of regen available via the brake pedal in brake-by-wire cars, 200 or 300 kilowatts of braking is never needed when driving economically, and the whole idea of one-pedal driving is to avoid ever needing high brake forces. So this limited maximum regen won't have any impact on economy. Many people declare they love one-pedal driving because of the efficiency of never having to use the brakes, forgetting that autonomous emergency braking and adaptive cruise highlight that just because you didn't press the pedal doesn't mean the friction brakes aren't in use, and maybe not aware that in a brake-by-wire vehicle, touching the brake pedal doesn't necessarily mean using the friction brakes. Confirmation bias may play a role in wanting to believe the fun thing is also efficient. But people do find it fun, and even if not necessarily more efficient, isn't that reason enough? What's fun? Why is playing football fun? There doesn't need to be a practical benefit to balls being kicked into goals for football to be fun. Also, any activity that involves refining skills to achieve an objective Even if the objective is pointless, can be fun. Trying to perfect the skill of throwing balls of paper into a waste paper basket can even be fun. One pedal driving can become a game of perfecting the skill of lifting off as smoothly as possible so the vehicle will come to a stop at the exact right point. Smooth one pedal driving becomes another driving skill, and that's fun for the same types of reason that driving itself can be fun. Despite people with agendas of replacing car ownership declaring a future where people won't need to own a car, that all seems to miss the point that many people get pleasure from car ownership and car driving. Perhaps the same people would respond, in the future, people won't need to have fun either. It's already been covered how one pedal driving is neither the most efficient nor necessarily a less efficient way of driving an EV, and that EV driving efficiency is covered more deeply in a separate video, but a few quick points. The first efficiency tip is to moderate liftoff to avoid overusing regen braking. Regen is like braking with a big discount on the energy lost, but it's still not free, and it's still necessary to keep braking to the minimum possible. The second efficiency tip is, as it requires more driver engagement to maintain finesse and keep liftoff braking subtle when using one pedal driving, limit to use to when feeling engaged. When feeling less engaged in driving, the fun won't be there anyway, so switch off one pedal driving. While Tesla drivers may feel they have little choice, the solution for driving a Tesla when not focused on the fun of driving is to use driver assist to avoid needing to use the pedals altogether. The third tip is about safety, not efficiency, and that is to ensure the reflex to hit the brake pedal in an emergency is maintained by sometimes using the brake pedal for stopping. Now to the safety question: unintended acceleration and one pedal driving. Unintended acceleration is when a car accelerates without the driver intending to accelerate. While there have been rare cases of stuck pedals and other faults leading to runaway cars, most incidents are about cars accelerating when the driver wants to apply the brakes, and this generally is only reported when the result is an accident. When there's data available, the car maker can usually prove the unintended acceleration was caused by the driver stomping on the accelerator when they intended to stomp on the brake. But this still leaves a question as to why, in some vehicles, more drivers panic and press the wrong pedal. For learners, panicking and pressing the wrong pedal is common, but usually at low speeds and without causing an accident. As drivers gain experience, pressing the brake pedal becomes a reflex, and when you panic, the response needs to be a reflex. But now consider one pedal driving. The reflex to press the brake pedal is no longer being reinforced. This is unlikely to cause problems for drivers who have been driving for decades, but what about new drivers? Clearly, there's a potential problem, but is there evidence? There's no data on one pedal driving specifically, but given, since from 2019, one pedal driving has been the default in Teslas, and the vast majority of cars sold with one pedal driving have been Teslas, accident rates and claims of unintended acceleration in Teslas may give a read as to what's happening in general. It turns out, despite Tesla being a brand new brand, which means the cars are all young and have advanced safety systems, and Tesla vehicles have some of the safest crash ratings of any brand, it turns out Tesla have the highest fatal accident rate of all car brands. Although Model 3 and Model Y don't have absolute highest fatality rate of any vehicle, they still make the highest fatality rate list, below only sports cars like the 911 and Corvettes that date from 1964 and 1953 respectively, and small and dated hatchbacks, and take the brand of Tesla overall to number one in the highest fatality rate. There are also multiple claims of unintended acceleration, and where there's been telemetry, the telemetry has supported Tesla's defense that the driver was at fault. But the question here is not about faulty pedals, but that one pedal driving habits may contribute to the drivers being at fault. That's certainly far from proof of a link, and there are also other unproven theories, so you need to choose your own explanation, but something to think about for young, less experienced drivers. Do you recommend your young adult child use one-pedal driving? Understanding one-pedal driving requires coming to grips with the fact that there is no longer a direct relationship between traditional friction brakes and the brake pedal. Friction brakes can also be activated by autonomous braking, cruise control, lift-off regen, and one-pedal driving. And with almost all EVs and hybrids, pressing the brake pedal will only activate friction brakes when regen alone isn't enough. One-pedal driving may not be a path to greater efficiency and won't provide access to the highest levels of regen, but it can be fun and need noticeably reduce efficiency. So if you enjoy it, why not? Provided the reflex of hitting that second pedal in an emergency remains in place.